2024. What are the attributes of culture? When we talk about culture, what essential characteristics define it?
That's a great place to begin. Edward B. Tylor, a foundational anthropologist, he famously defined culture as that complex whole which includes knowledge, belief, art, law, morals, custom, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by man as a member of society. Quite a definition. Our sources break this complex whole down into 9 key attributes, helping us see its many facets. First, culture is learned. This isn't something we're born with, like, our eye color. Instead, it's acquired through a process called enculturation, basically, learning from our family and community. Think about it. How did you learn your native language, or even simple table manners?
Right, you just absorb it growing up.
Exactly. No one is born knowing these things. We learn them by growing up in a specific cultural environment.
So it's like a vast operating system we download from our surroundings. What's another core attribute?
Precisely. Second, culture is symbolic. This means we communicate and create meaning through symbols. Think about a red traffic light, a national flag, or even a simple gesture like a handshake. They all carry deep meaning within a culture. As Clifford Geertz pointed out, culture is a system of inherited conceptions expressed in symbolic forms. It lets us share abstract ideas that go way beyond just immediate experience.
Okay, so learned and symbolic. What else?
Third, culture is shared. Culture isn't an individual thing, it's a collective experience. Think of a common festival or a national holiday. These are practices and beliefs that bind a community, giving people a sense of belonging. E. Evans Pritchard's studies, for instance, highlighted how shared kinship structures unified the newer people.
Learned, symbolic, and shared, those 3 already paint a powerful picture. But is it static, or does it evolve? Does it change?
Oh, it absolutely evolves. Fourth, culture is dynamic and adaptive. Cultures are constantly changing, responding to new technologies, environments, or interactions. Just look at how global communication shifted with the rise of the internet. Our work habits, social interactions, how we form relationships, it's all adapted at lightning speed.
Yeah, that's undeniable.
Bronisław Malinowski observed this adaptability way back with the Trobriand Islanders, showing how their customs changed in response to new circumstances. Fifth, culture is integrated, or you could say holistic. This means all parts of a culture, like its economy, religion, politics, family structures, they're all interconnected.
Ah, okay, so it's like a web.
Exactly like a web. A change in one area, say the Industrial Revolution, didn't just affect how people worked. It transformed family life, social classes, even religious practices. It's like a complex ecosystem where every element influences the others. Sixth, culture is a normative system. Ralph Leland emphasized this. Culture provides guidelines for what's considered acceptable or unacceptable behavior. These are our societal norms.
Like rules for how to behave.
Sort of, yeah. Think about marriage customs. They vary widely. Some cultures practice monogamy, others polygamy, and these norms are powerful forces in shaping individual behavior. Seventh, culture is transmitted through symbols and language. Language is maybe the most powerful human tool for passing on knowledge, stories, history across generations, even through oral traditions without written records. Without this, culture as we know it would just, it wouldn't exist.
Makes sense.
Eighth, culture is patterned. Margaret Mead's work on adolescence in Samoa revealed this. Cultures operate in predictable patterns that shape individual behaviors and even developmental stages. Her findings showed Samoan teenagers experienced adolescence very differently than Western teens, underscoring how deeply culture influences our lives, even biological stages.
That's fascinating. And the last one?
And finally, ninth, culture is subject to change through processes like acculturation that's adopting elements from another culture and diffusion, the spreading of cultural traits. Franz Boas showed this happens through trade, migration, globalization. Think of how Western fashion has spread globally, or how many cuisines blend indigenous and colonial influences.
Right, like fusion food.
Exactly. What stands out here is how these attributes aren't just a checklist. They work together in complex ways. Understanding them helps us appreciate the incredible resilience and diversity of human societies.
It also makes you wonder, do all these parts change at the same speed? That brings us to another fascinating question, this one raised in 2023. Explain William Ogburn and cultural lag. You know that feeling when technology rushes forward, but our rules and customs kind of struggle to keep pace?
Yes, absolutely. That's exactly what Ogburn explored. William F. Ogburn, a prominent sociologist, introduced the concept of cultural lag way back in 1922. It highlights a critical gap, the uneven speed at which different parts of culture change. Specifically, it describes the delay between the rapid evolution of material culture, our technology tools, infrastructure, and the slower adaptation of non-material culture.
Non-material being, like our values and beliefs.
Precisely. Our values, beliefs, norms, laws. When our material world rockets forward, our non-material world often lags behind, creating social problems and tensions. Why this lag? Well, technological advancements are a huge driver. Society simply struggles to catch up with their implications. Also, conservatism in beliefs and values can powerfully resist change. People often cling to old ways.
Sure, change can be scary.
It can. And the complexity of social institutions like legal or educational systems means they're often just slow to reform. It's like trying to upgrade a massive old computer system. Some vital parts just can't keep up easily.
Can you give us some current examples, something that really brings this idea to life for us today?
Absolutely. Consider digital technology versus our legal systems. Think about social media, AI. The explosion there has huge implications for privacy, data security, misinformation, yet laws and ethical guidelines are still playing catch-up, aren't they? It leads to widespread confusion and new dilemmas practically every day.
Definitely see that. What else?
Or think about medical innovations versus ethical norms. Breakthroughs like IVF, gene editing, even sophisticated life support technologies. They challenge traditional ideas about family, life, and death. We find ourselves in really intense debates over what's acceptable, forcing us to reevaluate deeply held beliefs.
Yeah, like defining when life begins or ends.
Exactly. Even environmental changes versus public attitudes. We have compelling scientific evidence for climate change and its causes. However, public and governmental responses often lag behind, hindered by resistance to altering consumption habits or industrial practices. This lag exacerbates environmental degradation. It's a clear case where knowing isn't always doing.
It's a really powerful and, frankly, quite relevant concept. But were there any criticisms of Ogburn's theory?
Yes, there were. Some critics argued it had an overemphasis on material culture, suggesting technology was the only driver of change, maybe neglecting other factors like political movements or, cultural shifts.
Okay, fair point.
Others found the distinction between material and non-material culture a bit too simplistic, because many cultural elements are really deeply intertwined. It also presented a somewhat linear perspective of change, which doesn't always capture the complex, multi-directional ways cultures evolve. Things aren't always A leads to B.
Right.
And importantly, it maybe neglected human agency. It didn't fully account for how people actively push back, interpret, and shape cultural adaptation, rather than just passively responding to technology.
Despite those critiques, Ogburn's idea still feels incredibly pertinent to our fast-paced world.
It absolutely does. Ogburn's concept gives us a framework to analyze the social problems, the tensions that arise when our collective wisdom and rules can't keep pace with new realities. It's a valuable tool for understanding why societies often feel, well, a step behind, especially now.
Moving into a more global perspective now, let's critically examine a question from 2023. Discuss Arjun Appadurai's conceptualization of global cultural economy. How does he help us understand our interconnected world? It often feels both unified and incredibly fragmented at the same time.
Right. Arjun Appadurai, a very influential anthropologist, offered a really nuanced way to understand globalization in his 1996 work, Modernity at Large. He argued against that simplistic idea that globalization just makes everyone the same, like the McDonaldization idea.
Yeah, that everything becomes Americanized or Westernized.
Exactly. Instead, he emphasized complex, often disconnected flows of ideas, people, technology, money, and media across borders. He called these scapes. He identified 5 key scapes that define this global cultural economy. First, ethnoscapes.
Ethno, meaning people.
Yes, these are the movements of people, migrants, refugees, tourists, guest workers. Think of the Indian diaspora influencing cultural practices like yoga or Bollywood in the US. People carry their cultures with them. Second, technoscapes. This is the global flow of technology. Consider how affordable smartphones in developing countries enable new forms of cultural expression and connection. Technology travels incredibly fast, reshaping local lives.
Okay, ethnoscapes, technoscapes.
Third, financescapes. This is about the rapid, complex flow of global capital and its impact. Foreign direct investments, for example, have completely reshaped urban landscapes in places like Bengaluru, India, with the rise of massive IT hubs. Money moves instantly, changing real-world spaces.
Right, the global market.
Fourth, mediascapes. The worldwide spread of information, images, stories through various media, Hollywood's global reach, or how social media platforms influence fashion and consumption trends everywhere. Prime examples. We're all linked through screens and narratives.
And the last one.
Fifth, ideoscapes. This is the flow of ideologies, like democracy, human rights, religious beliefs, even environmentalism. Global movements for climate change awareness, like Fridays for Future, show how ideas can cross borders and mobilize people. Ideas, after all, don't need passports.
Okay, 5 scapes, but you said they were disjunctive. What does that mean?
Yes, that's key. These scapes are interrelated but disjunctive. They don't always line up perfectly or flow evenly. Imagine technology flowing rapidly into a region, but without the accompanying financial structures or maybe ethical guidelines to support its use.
Ah, I see. So it creates mismatches and fragmentation.
Exactly. It leads to a fragmented, complex, and often unpredictable global cultural dynamic.
That really clarifies how globalization isn't just one big, smooth process. What are the major strengths of looking at it this way?
It's quite powerful. It offers a crucial break from homogenization models, moving beyond those simplistic ideas of McDonaldization. It also focuses on agency, acknowledging that people actively interpret, adapt, and shape these cultural flows. They aren't just passive recipients.
That's important.
Very. It's incredibly relevant to contemporary globalization, easily adaptable to new phenomena like, say, digital nomadism or cryptocurrencies. And it highlights the intersectionality of flows, showing how everything overlaps in complex, multi-directional ways.
But like any theory, it must have critics. What are the main limitations people point out with Appadurai's framework?
Sure. Some argue it has an overemphasis on fragmentation, potentially underestimating the enduring power of, say, global corporations or Western media in shaping dominant narratives. There's also potentially a neglect of structural inequalities. It doesn't always fully address how developed nations often control or benefit disproportionately from these flows, leading to things like digital divides. The ambiguity in definitions of terms like scapes can also make it a bit difficult to apply consistently in specific research projects. And finally, some say it might have limited engagement with local cultures, sometimes overlooking how local communities actively resist or reinterpret global flows. Think of McDonald's offering McVeggie burgers in India. That's a clear example of local adaptation, not just passive acceptance.
Right, the local pushback or adaptation. Even with those critiques, Appadurai's ideas seem incredibly valuable for understanding our world today.
Absolutely. His work helps us understand things like cultural hybridization. K-pop blending Western and Korean elements is a great example. And the dynamics of digital and social media, where influencers combine ethnoscapes, mediascapes, and ideoscapes. It also sheds light on global inequalities, like vaccine distribution issues, and helps in decolonizing globalization studies by challenging Eurocentric views. It's a truly valuable lens.
Now, let's explore a fascinating shift in how we understand different cultures. We're going to combine several questions here, really tracing the journey from ethnocentrism to cultural relativism. This covers insights from questions asked in 2022, 2019, and 2013. Specifically, discuss the historical and cultural context that led to superseding ethnocentrism with cultural relativism in anthropology. What are the distinguishing features of cultural relativism, and why has cultural relativism been so dear to anthropologists?
Right, this is a monumental shift in anthropological thought, really fundamental.
Yeah.
In its early phase, ethnocentrism was dominant. William Graham Sumner defined it simply as the belief that your own culture is the benchmark, the superior one. Especially during the colonial era, European anthropologists often studied non-European societies to, frankly, justify colonial rule. They viewed other cultures through a hierarchical lens.
Like judging them against European standards?
It's exactly. Lewis Henry Morgan's theory, for instance, categorized societies into savagery, barbarism, and civilization, clearly reflecting a Eurocentric bias. This often led to labeling indigenous customs as primitive and even legitimizing exploitation through things like 19th century scientific racism.
So it was pretty dark and judgmental beginning for the field in some ways. What started to change this perspective towards something more, well, open-minded?
The big turning point was Franz Boas and historical particularism. Boas fundamentally challenged those evolutionary hierarchical theories. He argued that each culture has its own unique history and must be understood on its own terms within its specific environment.
So no universal ladder of progress.
Precisely. He famously said, civilization is not something absolute, it is relative. His study of the PYQ tribes, for example, showed how their potlatch ceremonies, which might look wasteful to outsiders, were actually essential to their social and economic systems. You couldn't just judge it, you had to understand its context. This intellectual shift led directly to the rise of fieldwork and participant observation as core methods.
Actually going and living there.
Yes, anthropologists like Bronisław Malinowski and Margaret Mead spent long periods immersing themselves in other cultures. Malinowski with the Trobriand Islanders' Kula Ring Exchange, Mead studying Samoan adolescents. By living there, they show the deep complexity and internal logic of these societies from the inside, directly contradicting many Western assumptions and stereotypes.
So cultural relativism became a core methodology. What are its defining characteristics then, if we were to pin it down based on that 2019 question?
Yes, it really became a cornerstone. One key feature is contextual understanding. The idea that any cultural practice must be understood within its specific history, environment, and social structure. You can't just isolate it. For example, understanding a traditional healing method requires looking at the holistic beliefs about health and the body within that culture, not just comparing it to Western medicine.
Okay, context is key. What else?
Another feature is the rejection of universal judgments. Cultural relativism actively opposes imposing external moral or cultural standards from one culture onto another. This encourages an appreciation for diverse ways of life, like arranged marriages or different dietary practices around the globe. And it has a strong focus on cultural diversity. This concept emphasizes that cultural variation isn't random. It's usually a product of differing historical paths and environmental circumstances. It champions the idea that there are many equally valid ways for humans to organize their lives.
That sounds like a powerful approach for understanding. So thinking about the 2013 question, why is this concept so dear to anthropologists? Why is it so central?
It's fundamental for several interconnected reasons. Firstly, as we touched on, it underpins their methodology. It demands anthropologists immerse themselves without preconceived notions, striving for ethnographic objectivity and unbiased descriptions. Secondly, it fosters deep respect for cultural diversity, promoting the idea that every culture has intrinsic value and logic. Thirdly, it is a direct opposition to ethnocentrism, actively countering that tendency to believe one's own culture is superior.
So it's methodological, ethical, and theoretical.
Absolutely. And finally, it serves as a crucial theoretical foundation for many other anthropological theories that seek to understand practices based on their meaning and function within specific societal contexts. It's really their guiding philosophy for empathetic, rigorous study.
This shift completely transformed anthropology and how we engage with diverse cultures. But what happens when cultural relativism bumps up against universal principles, like human rights? That's a really complex question from 2020. Human rights and cultural relativism.
Yeah, this is where the concept gets very challenging and honestly quite debated. We've established cultural relativism, first really articulated as an analytical tool by Franz Boas, is about understanding practices within their own context, pushing back against ethnocentrism. Now, when we talk about human rights, we're often talking about universal standards. Think of the UN's Universal Declaration of Human Rights from 1948. The tension arises between that super-organic view of culture, where culture has its own logic, maybe even above individual rights, and the significance of individual human dignity.
So, how does this tension actually play out? What are the main criticisms of cultural relativism when it comes to human rights issues?
Well, cultural relativism faces significant criticism here. As Elizabeth Zachenter points out, it can potentially be used by dominant sections within a society to maintain the status quo. They might justify practices like honor killings or oppose intercaste marriages by claiming it's our culture.
Ah, so it can be manipulated.
It can be distorted, yes.
Yeah.
Also, extreme or absolute cultural relativism seems to defend, or at least not condemn, gross human rights violations. This could include defending practices like female genital mutilation, FGM, or child marriages by saying we must understand it in its context without critique. The Sabarimala temple issue in India, for instance, highlighted this tension between defending specific religious beliefs and women's right to equality and access. The big question becomes, when does understanding a cultural practice cross the line into condoning harm or injustice?
That's a really vital distinction. So, how can we possibly reconcile these two crucial ideas, respect for culture and universal human rights? It feels like we need both, especially in our globalized world.
It's a truly critical point, and most anthropologists today would argue there's a difference between keeping an open mind methodologically and being morally relativistic to the point of inaction. Elizabeth Zachenter suggests that while cultural beliefs and diversity must be respected, we need to agree on a certain common ground below which no society should fall. This common ground typically aligns with fundamental human rights, the right to life, freedom from torture, etc.
So, not absolute relativism, but maybe critical relativism.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And interestingly, cultural relativism, used carefully, can actually be a tool for change. A relativist understanding of the values and contexts of, say, elite groups who uphold certain practices can make it easier to persuade them to bring about changes. If you understand why a harmful practice exists within their worldview, you might find a more effective way to encourage positive change through dialogue and finding alternatives rather than just condemning it from the outside, which can cause backlash.
That makes sense. It sounds like a very contextual approach. Promoting dialogue and understanding is key to navigating this complex relationship. It's about ensuring both cultural diversity and human dignity are respected. A delicate, ongoing balance, really.
Exactly. It's not easy, but it's necessary.
Now, for a really thought-provoking question, this one from 2014. Is culture unique to human beings? Critically examine. When E.B. Tylor gave his definition way back, it seemed to center on man as a member of society. Is that entirely true? Do our non-human relatives share in this complex thing we call culture?
Traditionally, yes. Anthropologists like Kroeber, Klacon, Herskovits. They definitely define culture as unique to humans, often seeing it as the man-made part of the environment. That was the standard view for a long time. However, that view has been significantly challenged by more recent observations, particularly in primatology. It turns out the lines are a bit blurrier than we once thought.
Really? Blurry how?
Well, scholars like McGrew back in 1998, and many others since, have observed that non-human primates engage in social activities that display many basic characteristics we associate with human culture. They're not just operating on raw instinct alone.
That's fascinating. What kind of observations are we talking about? Give us some examples of these cultural elements in animals.
Okay, well, we've seen tool usage by apes, like chimpanzees using sticks, sometimes even modified sticks, to extract termites. And crucially, they learn this from watching each other.
Ah, learning is key.
Yes. Jane Goodall famously documented complex gestural communication in chimpanzees. Then there's the classic study by Kawai in 1965 on Japanese macaques washing potatoes in seawater before eating them, a behavior that started with one individual and then spread through the troop.
Wow, they learn to season their food.
Sort of, or at least clean it. The AI project at Kyoto University even showed chimpanzees learning to play computer games and help others learn, and the Koshima monkeys demonstrating how to separate wheat from sand by immersing it in water. Another example of learned, acquired, and transferable behavior.
So, these animals are sharing knowledge and traditions, much like humans do. Does that mean they are cultured beings in the same sense as us?
Not exactly. That's where it gets complicated. While there are undeniable overlaps, learning, transmission, even tool use, Leslie White highlighted a crucial distinction. The human ability to symbolize. It isn't just learning a few fixed symbols, it's our capacity to freely and arbitrarily bestow meanings upon things and then comprehend those abstract meanings. Think about language, art, religion. Animals often express themselves through more instinctive sign language or learn a limited set of symbols, but they don't seem to invent complex symbolic systems like humans do.
So the level of abstract thought is different.
Vastly different, it seems. Michael Tomasello also noted that humans are unique in their ability to pool cognitive resources across generations. We build on what came before, leading to continuous rapid modification and increasing complexity in cultural traditions. This cumulative aspect seems much less developed in animals. Plus, we have to be a bit cautious. Many of the really compelling AIDS studies were conducted under lab conditions. Whether those results fully hold true in natural settings over long, cumulative periods is still debated.
Okay, so what then are the key differences that truly distinguish human culture, even if animals show some elements?
There are several crucial points that make human culture unique in its depth and complexity. Complex symbolic communication. Our language allows us to convey incredibly abstract concepts, philosophical ideas, detailed histories, far beyond immediate needs or simple signals.
Right, we tell complex stories.
Exactly. Then there's cumulative learning. We build continuously on previous knowledge and innovations. Think technology, science, art. It grows exponentially. Also, elaborate norms and enforcement. Human cultures have intricate systems of rules, ethics, laws, and social sanctions that guide nearly all behavior, way beyond simple dominance hierarchies.
We have formal laws, police, courts.
Right. And deliberate cultural transmission. We engage in explicit teaching, socialization, formal education to pass on culture. It's not just observation, there's also the sheer vast cultural variation. Human cultures are incredibly diverse across the globe compared to the relatively more uniform behaviors within other species. And things like complex concepts of religion, philosophy, and art, these profound dimensions of meaning-making seem largely absent in other species.
Imagination and creativity, too.
Absolutely. Our capacity for abstract imagination and creativity, storytelling, music, endless technological innovation is vast. And finally, rapid cultural evolution. Human culture can evolve and adapt incredibly quickly, fundamentally reshaping our environments and ourselves over relatively short periods.
Okay, so while recognizing these overlaps is important and enriches our understanding of the animal kingdom, the depth, complexity, and especially the unique symbolic capacities of human culture remain truly distinct. It's a difference in scale and quality.
I think that's a fair way to put it, yes.
Right. To wrap up our deep dive today, let's tackle one final question from 2013. Bring out the distinguishing features of culture and civilization, these two terms. People often use them interchangeably in everyday conversation, don't they? But our sources show they are quite distinct.
Indeed they are, and it's an important distinction. Let's start with the definitions again, just to be clear. Culture, as Edward B. Tylor told us, is that complex whole, knowledge, belief, art, morals, law, custom, habits, acquired as a member of society. It's the whole package of how a group lives, thinks, and behaves. Broad.
Okay, the whole package.
Yeah.
And civilization.
Civilization, as Arnold J. Toynbee defined it, is more specific. It's a cultural entity characterized by the existence of a stable political structure, the development of a written language, and a common religious system and worldview. It represents a more advanced, highly organized stage of societal development, often involving cities, states.
So one is the broad foundation, maybe, and the other is a specific type of structure built upon it, like a complex building.
That's a good analogy. Let's break down the key differences. Definition. Culture is that totality of learned behaviors, norms, values. Civilization is an advanced stage of societal development with political stability, technology, organized systems. Nature. Culture is largely intangible beliefs, values, ideas. Civilization tends to be more tangible. You can see the infrastructure, the governance systems, the written records.
Okay, intangible versus tangible mostly.
Mostly. Scope. Culture is broader, encompassing everything from art and language to religion and food. Civilization is narrower, emphasizing material and structural advancements like cities, monumental architecture, complex legal codes. Expression. Culture is seen in traditions, rituals, social behaviors. Civilization is evident in institutions like governments or legal systems, technology, large-scale architecture, development. This is crucial. Culture exists at all stages of human society, even among hunter-gatherers or small nomadic groups. Civilization, however, only emerges in more advanced stages of societal organization.
So every human group has culture, but not every group develops what we'd call a civilization.
Exactly right. Example. Language, dance, kinship systems, festivals are culture. Urban centers, written laws, pyramids, sophisticated trade networks are civilization. Focus. Culture often focuses on individual and community identity, meaning, and continuity. Civilization tends to focus on progress, large-scale organization, control over the environment. Dynamics. Culture is inherently dynamic, constantly adapting. Civilization, while it evolves, tends to be relatively more stable structure-wise. Transforming a civilization requires significant shifts. And dependency. This is key. Culture can exist without civilization, but civilization cannot exist without culture as its fundamental foundation. Civilization builds on existing cultural elements.
That clarifies so much. It's like culture is the soil, the air, the water,
Yeah.
and civilization is the complex city that grows from it and uses it. They must be interdependent then, right? They don't exist in total isolation.
Absolutely. They are distinct, but deeply intertwined. Culture is the soul of civilization. Civilization builds on cultural elements like religion, art, language, shared values, technologies that arise from cultural knowledge. Think of the architectural achievements of ancient Egypt. Those pyramids profoundly reflected a deep cultural emphasis on the afterlife and their religious beliefs. The civilization's forms expressed its culture.
Right.
Conversely, civilization provides the framework for culture. Its infrastructure, institutions, and stability can nurture cultural growth and complexity. The invention of the printing press, a civilizational advancement, allowed an explosion in the dissemination of cultural and intellectual ideas during the Renaissance.
Ah, so the structure helps the culture flourish and spread.
Precisely.
Historically, look at the Indus Valley civilization. It shows a beautiful harmony between advanced urban planning and sanitation, civilization, and its distinctive artistic expression, seals, and social structures, culture. Or think of Greek civilization. It thrived due to the interdependence of its philosophical thought and drama, culture, and its democratic political institutions and city-states, civilization. They truly weave together, creating the rich tapestry of human history.
What an amazing way to distinguish them, but also see how they connect. That's really helpful. Wow, what an incredible journey into the heart of culture today. Let's quickly recap some of the key insights we've uncovered. It's been a lot.
It has. We started by exploring the 9 fundamental attributes of culture, understanding it as learned, symbolic, shared, dynamic, integrated, normative, transmitted through language, patterned, and, importantly, always subject to change.
We then delved into William Ogburn's powerful concept of cultural lag, where our material world, especially technology, sometimes outpaces our values and laws, creating those fascinating, sometimes difficult social tensions.
Yeah. Then we critically examined Arjun Appadurai's framework of the global cultural economy. We saw globalization not as simple homogenization, but as complex, often disconnected or disjunctive flows of people, ethnoscapes, technology, technoscapes, money, financescapes, media, mediascapes, and ideologies, ideoscapes across borders.
We then explored that monumental shift from ethnocentrism to cultural relativism in anthropology. We traced its historical roots, understood its core features like contextual understanding and rejecting universal judgment, and recognized why it's so vital for respectful inquiry in the field.
Following that, we tackled the crucial and often tricky debate around human rights and cultural relativism. We highlighted the challenge of balancing universal human dignity with respect for diverse cultural practices, emphasizing the need for dialogue and maybe a common ethical ground.
We then critically asked, is culture unique to human beings? We found compelling evidence of cultural elements in animals' learning, tool use, transmission, but concluded that human culture stands out profoundly for its complex symbolism, cumulative learning, elaborate norms, and capacity for abstract thought.
That's right. And finally, we brought out the distinguishing features of culture and civilization. We recognize culture as that broad foundation of learned behaviors and values upon which civilization, an advanced organized societal structure, often with states and cities, is built. And we saw how powerfully interdependent they are in shaping human history.
What an incredible exploration of culture in all its facets. You've now gained a really powerful understanding, a shortcut maybe, to being well-informed on a truly foundational subject.
And as you go about your day, maybe consider this. How much of what you do, how you think, what you believe, how much of it is simply a cultural habit acquired as a member of society, learned behavior? And then how might that habit look? Or maybe even clash with someone else's, someone from a different part of the world, or even just a different family or community background.
Something to chew on, definitely. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep that curiosity alive, ask those questions, and we'll catch you next time.